You deserved everything you got. This is a union city.
That is a Philadelphia tradition.
Seize the means of podcasting.
Oh, God, the bosses crushed us.
Let me tell you one thing else.
In oldie-timey times.
Who said it? Kanye West or Thomas
We
Paine?
will not raw dog reality for that one.
The pleasure of the flesh is in solidarity.
The Scab Buster.
It's going to be wholly unprofessional.
Ape together strong. Let that be your mantra. So we now live in a country that imports most of its steel. But there was a time when we didn't import most of our steel.
Okay. So we're talking about the past.
Yes. The history.
That's one of my 3 favorite times.
Ooh. So we're talking about the 1959 steel strike. Specifically, the strike at Fairless Steel, which is a subsidiary of U.S. Steel.
Of course it is.
U.S. Steel is the company that came out of Carnegie Steel, which was the company involved in the Homestead strike.
Oh, okay. Ties back. Okay.
Yeah, because there's only like 6 companies, and 2 of them are owned by Andrew Carnegie.
To this day.
Yeah, basically. Okay, so...
I own Monsanto.
Yeah. United Steelworkers were in negotiations with U.S. Steel and all of the other major steel corporations in the country because they were negotiating on a national level contract. So this contract would go out for all every major steel company in the country.
Okay.
But they kept running into one major roadblock, which was Section 2(b).
Oh.
So it prevented the company from changing the number of workers assigned to any specific task. Basically, management was claiming that this prevented them from running things efficiently, and that the current rule, which basically like set numbers of people for different tasks, allowed for too much feather bedding.
What?
Which is when you just like have workers doing bullshit jobs rather than, or have like extra people.
Yeah.
For a task.
Okay. Just in case.
Yeah. Which is actually, kind of important when you're pouring molten steel to have like extra sets of hands available.
Probably.
Yeah.
I see a lot of like lost hands in the molten steel business.
Yeah. That definitely used to be a thing, and then they started unionizing, and then the incidence of like pouring steel onto people went down.
See, that's why you can't make Terminator 2 these days.
It's true.
That's the exact reason why. It's not the violence or anything like that. It's you don't have unionized steel. It's terrible.
True. Okay, so the union was arguing that maintaining or removing these rules would allow management to bring in automation, reduce the number of hours and the number of total workers, and basically just reduce the workforce.
Automation, Skynet, I called it.
Yeah. So the company wanted to create Terminator, and the union was standing up against that. The companies were all claiming that these the changes were necessary to compete on a global scale, but there's debate about that. Mm-hmm. And then obviously there were also wage and benefit increases. And really what David J. McDonald, who was the president of United Steelworkers, was arguing was basically that the company was trying to just break the union. So that's why they weren't budging on it. They wanted this to be a rock that the union would throw itself against, because they knew that they probably had the federal government on their side at this point, because this is under the Eisenhower administration and had a fairly conservative legislature. So they kind of figured that the company figured that they could probably get the union broken up.
Yeah.
With all of that backstory, we're going to go to Morrisville, Pennsylvania, and the Fairless steel plant there, which was built in 1952 or opened in 1952. It had 2 blast furnaces, 9 open hearth furnaces, 2 coke batteries, an 80-inch hot strip mill, rolling mills, a sheet and tin department, a pipe mill, and a vessel slip. By 1959, it employed about 7,000 people and took up the entire peninsula south of Morrisville, Pennsylvania. Looking at it on a map, it was probably the footprint of the plant was probably like half of the town of Morrisville.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Or half the size of Morrisville. And so both Levittown, this was right around the time that Levittown was built, and most of the workers there worked at Fairless. Along with, there was also Fairless Hills, which was a company-built, planned community, but it wasn't company-owned property at this point. They sold it to the workers. But it was like a planned community built by the Fairless company. Okay, so the contract is set to expire on July 1st, but they managed to negotiate an extension to July 14th. However, on June 30th, just before the 11 p.m. shift was set to start, 100 pickets showed up outside of the Fairless plant.
Okay.
Overnight, that number grew, and by the start of the 7 a.m. shift, there were 500 people.
All right.
Picketing out front of the plant. There were only 4 entrances to this plant because it was on a peninsula. So there's 4 bridges going in, which makes it actually very easy to picket
or defend.
Yeah. Speaking of a company that has a history with Homestead, so there was also a sheriff's detail on scene that was just there to observe everything and be ready in case something happened.
Whatever that means.
Yeah. But so far the strike had been peaceful. 3,100 workers showed up to start their shift and immediately refused to cross the picket line. So now you have about 3,600 people standing out front of this plant.
Nice.
And at this point, the company started to shut down production and was preparing to cool all of the towers and everything and prepare for a long strike.
Yeah.
But this was a wildcat strike that wasn't sanctioned by either the local or the international. So local 4889 president Russell Thompson told the press, "This is a wildcat strike. It is not authorized. We're not sure what the real reason behind it is. Many of the men have grievances, but just the same, this is a wildcat strike."
Yeah.
We should also point out that this is after the passage of Taft-Hartley, which in 1947, which had increased penalties for wildcat strikes. So they were trying to avoid any federal labor law coming down on their heads.
I mean, I get it.
Yeah. So he reached out to both the pickets and to USW President David J. McDonald, trying to find a resolution. They held a mass meeting at the Tullytown Fire Hall, which is their union headquarters. And Russell Thompson spoke to the strikers, basically saying hey, I understand you're upset and I get why you want to strike, but this isn't the time. We have a 2-week extension. Just hold off. And
B7. I don't respect any union that doesn't have their headquarters in a fire hall.
It's fair. I mean, where else are you going to have union bingo night? That's my one question for Starbucks Workers United. Are these young millennials playing bingo?
I think the millennials are playing.
Probably.
We got to get the Zoomers on it, though.
Oh, yeah.
They're too busy revolting against the system and being all communist and cool and awesome and stuff. They need to play some fucking bingo.
Too busy transing their genders to play the bingo.
Some people are just am I a girl? Am I a guy? I'm just was I 27 called? Fuck.
God damn it. Talking about the real problems here. Okay, so after a fairly lengthy debate, they managed to get the strikers to agree to stop the Wildcat. And
Okay.
so first strike, 16 hours, that was over.
All right. Good job, guys.
There were also Wildcat strikes up on the Great Lakes. So this wasn't an isolated incident. There were a bunch of Wildcat strikes kind of spread across the country.
Man, I miss those.
So, yeah.
I miss those. Those are fucking badass.
So yeah, the rank and file within USW, they were ready to fucking fight.
Mm-hmm.
So 7,000 workers at Fairless went back into the plant. Life continued under a temporary extended contract. But 18 of the Wildcat strikers, including the vice president of Local 4889, were fired by U.S. Steel. Because,
no.
Again, you don't have any protection if you go out in a Wildcat. So the union fought the firings, though, especially for Vice President John Ford, because they argued, one, he wasn't even marching on the picket line, and two, he was trying to convince everyone to go back to work. Okay, so July 13th, Fairless Works started to bank their furnaces, which basically means like starting the cooling process, because you can't just turn these things on and off. Okay, so both the company and the union were expecting a very like long and drawn out strike. And they wanted
Gabe,
to make...
did you get a parrot?
No, it's my dog's birthday today.
What?
Which so we got him a squeaker toy.
Oh God.
I'll close my door.
No, it's Gabe. It's fine. It's fine.
I'm surprised it's coming through.
It gives it ambiance.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure like someone wasn't choking a chicken downstairs.
No. But I'm also recording this in a bathrobe because we went out to walk the dog, and then within 5 minutes it started pouring. So we came back and were soaked, and then gave him his squeaky toy.
Petition for you to wear a bathrobe every time we record.
Well, I mean, I already don't wear pants, so
Gabe, I haven't worn pants since episode 3. But
that's fair.
I learned quick. I was like, I gotta free ball.
That came out 2004.
What? What are you talking about?
Whatchamacallit? Episode 3, Star Wars.
Gabe, there's only room for one person on the podcast to tell horrible fucking jokes. And it's not the guy with an open bathrobe right now.
Pardon me. Okay, so there were 7,000 workers in the plant, but only 6,100 were expected to go on strike. There were also 1,000 non-union employees of the National Tube Division. Yeah. And they also workers in Central Operations Fairless Works.
Oh, damn.
Which I think was just maintenance.
Imagine. Well, yeah. I mean,
the company started banking provisions, cots, and supplies because they were planning on having 300 workers live inside the plant during the strike.
Okay. That sounds great.
Yeah. So talking about like turning this into a fortress that you have to defend.
Or a sleepover.
Yeah. The big old sleepover.
Depends on how you look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, what I'm picturing is like a fortress. I'm waiting for the Byzantine Empire to attack this place. Bring up trebuchets.
They did stockpile 60 days worth of food for those 300 workers. There were also about like 1,500 other steel workers along the Delaware River that were expected to go on strike outside of Fairless. They don't really matter, but I wanted to mention them.
Damn. Wow.
Yep. So the union started preparations for the strike. Mainly, they had everyone come to the union hall and fill out applications for surplus food, which was basically, if you imagine like a food bank, but distributed by the county.
Okay.
So this was like I'm imagining it was a New Deal program that just kind of continued.
Interesting.
Supposedly the food wasn't great, but it was still like
government cheese.
Yeah. It would keep you alive. Strikers all got their last paychecks on July 8th. They were supposed to get another paycheck on July 22nd, and the company was supposed to announce a location where workers would pick up their checks once the strike started.
Okay.
Keep that in the back of your mind.
All right. It's already gone, Gabe. I'm sorry.
Okay. There will be a quiz at the end. Additionally, union reached out to like local groceries and vendors and everyone, and got them to extend lines of credit to all of the strikers if the man was a good credit risk prior to the strikes. So I don't like that. But the VA they also reached out to the VA, who said that they would support any worthy veterans during the strike.
Worthy veterans.
Then they had also selected their picket captains. Each man was responsible for 100 picketers, or for a team of 100 picketers, and basically like they laid out every single day of this and had plans for how it was going to go down.
Good.
So yeah, no, it was interesting.
No, that's what they need to do, man.
Yeah. They also reached out to mortgage companies.
What?
And got mortgage companies to basically like put the loans on hold if the strike or when the strike started.
Okay.
Which is, and this is also something I hadn't really thought about, because since all these guys are living in Levittown and like these new suburban communities, they all have mortgages rather than being renters.
Yeah.
And it was just an interesting shift to see, like, especially moving out of Philly and into a more suburban factory town in the 50s.
That's very interesting, actually.
That you have the major risk of the bank coming and taking your house back.
Yeah. Okay,
so July 15th, 1959, 500,000 United Steelworkers members employed at U.S. Steel and all of the other major steel concerns in the country walked out on strike. At Fairless, at midnight on July 15th, which is also my birthday, not 1959.
Uh-oh. Damn, Gabe. I was about to say. I mean, you look pretty wrinkly under that robe there, man.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was just looking at the wrong part.
1,000 men showed up out front of the Fairless plant, chanting and carrying signs saying no contract, no work. Okay. Contract had expired and the strike was on.
All right.
So inside the plant, 270 men led by Kermit L. Johansson.
No, I'm okay.
Kept watch and basically just sat there making sure that like nothing exploded.
All right.
During the strike.
That's fine.
So, yep. Bare maintenance crew. I just wanted to include them because I liked the name Kermit L. Johansson.
Tasty name. It's a tasty name.
So Russell Thompson, president of the local at Fairless, said that they were more than welcome to leave if they wanted to, but once they were out, they weren't getting back in.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
When did they turn into a fucking mob?
Yeah. So by daylight, the picket line dwindled down to just 20 people. So they had 5 people at each of the 4 gates.
A formidable force.
Oh, yeah. So everything was pretty quiet. And then in an unexpected visit, David J. McDonald, who is the president of USW, again, like I said, visited the plant and gave a speech to a crowd of now around 2,000 people who showed up to see him. He was on his way up to New York City and decided to like take a little stop off here. He said he was going to go up to New York City and return with the finest labor agreement any union ever had. And this also led to the only like real fight on the picket line at this point, where a reporter from WRCV TV in Philadelphia asked McDonald if he thought his career hinged on the outcome of the strike. And apparently McDonald got a little bit pissy with him. And then a bunch of guys off the picket line came over and ripped the film out of the camera. And then basically told the camera crew to like get the fuck out of here.
Oh, geez.
Yep. They wanted to keep a pretty good control on the media there, but unfortunately they didn't notice the like 5 reporters from the Philadelphia Inquirer and
Just
other newspapers writing down that this happened. On the company side, they had also prepared by stockpiling steel, basically trying to make sure that that they were trying to get a stockpile enough going so that they could maintain the rest of the steel industry even while the strike was ongoing. But the industry, like magazines and whatnot, because there was a magazine called Iron Age, which was about the steel industry.
Oh, God.
They estimated that by late July, steel users would be out of their current supply, or would be out of their supply within a month. And if the strike lasted for 6 weeks, basically the industry would be like fully disrupted, and the steel industry could not survive for 6 weeks. So negotiations between the international and the industry continued, but no one was budging. The picket line itself was still really well organized. They were allowed to use one of the parking lots on site to drop off or to do bus drop offs. So every 4 hours, buses would come, drop off a load of pickets. Then the previous shift would come back or would get on the bus and go back to the union hall and then go home.
I love that.
And there again, like talking about a general strike and whatnot, this is like these kind of logistics are how you get this to actually function.
Yeah.
And this is the boring shit that you have to think about that makes a picket line effective. July 22nd marked the first day of actual like concern for the strikers, because this was when they were supposed to receive their next paychecks. Company was supposed to establish a location in town to distribute the checks, but the white collar local of the strike or of the strikers, which was USW Local 5030 5030, refused to cross the picket line. That meant that they wouldn't go into the plant to calculate and distribute the payroll to everyone on the picket line. Which, on the one hand, I like the solidarity.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you're kind of shooting everyone else in the foot.
Yeah, man.
And apparently, because there was a big strike in 1956 as well, and during that one, they did go in and get the payroll done.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure exactly what the holdup was.
We found the loophole.
Yeah,
there is a reason to cross a picket line.
This might be
to take the
only
company's
reason.
Money. Yeah,
yeah. If you're going to take the company's money to pay the workers on strike, you can cross a picket line. So that meant that the strikers were probably not going to receive pay until after the strike was finished. But the local recognized, like, oh, everyone's going to be in a lot of trouble now, so we need to set up some mutual aid. First thing they did was establish a coffee kitchen at their headquarters, so that everyone could get a cup of coffee and probably like some donuts or something.
Okay.
Before going on their shift. Yeah. They had also started to make plans to establish a soup kitchen, but they held off on that until it got really desperate. They didn't want to expend the union's budget until they needed to.
Okay.
So they're reserving that for like, if this goes into the winter, we need to have a soup kitchen ready to go.
Yeah. That's fair.
And it's also worth noting that while the local was the one responsible for this, the union as a whole was responsible for like feeding, housing, and clothing 500,000 people.
Holy hell.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I'm good.
There was a lot of money that they had to take care of. Over 1,500 strikers did apply for the food benefits through the county. These were mostly, like I had said, filled out before the strike even started. In all, there were 1,628 applications covering 7,017 dependents. And this is another one of those things where, like, electoralism isn't necessarily going to win the day, but having government policy that can keep you alive during a strike is a good thing. It's another tool that you can have in your back pocket. And it's just interesting to see the like remnants of New Deal programs still being used into the 50s. And then also thinking about like because we tend to think about the resistance to like welfare programs being that it just makes people more desperate in the day to day to like search for jobs and take shittier jobs.
Yeah.
But I hadn't really considered that welfare programs are also a like release valve during a strike. So
yeah,
bosses, or by getting rid of all of our welfare programs in this country, it gets a lot easier for bosses to just crush you in a strike because you don't have that. Yeah. That was kind of upsetting to read about, or to realize that we've lost even government cheese. We don't even get that.
The only time someone has ever said that.
The
cheese,
one problem,
Grommet, cheese.
The one problem with the county food program was that they couldn't start delivering food to the strikers until August because they had to make sure that everyone who had already applied before the strike was prioritized.
Okay. So
basically they were going to feed everyone in July, and then starting early in August, they could feed the strikers.
Okay.
On the picket line itself, everything stayed pretty calm. Surprisingly, they were allowing 3 types of vehicles into the plant. So you could have mail trucks, federal vehicles, and trucks from King's Farms.
And non-binary trucks.
Yeah. Male, female, and non-binary trucks. We have to be inclusive. So picketers also reported several personal vehicles leaving the plant, but no one was quite sure whose they were. Okay. The only comment that came from the union about them is they know they're not coming back in.
Oh, damn, that's a threat.
So my theory is that it was probably maintenance staff going home. So while all of that was going on, negotiations were continuing up in New York City. Prior to the strike, the USW had tried to establish a fact-finding committee to basically act as like a third-party moderator and mediate all of the negotiations. But the companies basically turned that down almost immediately. So then a week into the strike, Labor Secretary James P. Mitchell got personally involved in the mediation, declaring himself a one-man fact finder.
All right.
Yeah.
Was he wearing an Ubin robe at the time?
Probably.
I'm the fact finder. I'm gonna find your facts.
Yeah, baby. I'm gonna negotiate this contract.
Oh my God, Gabe.
So industry knew they couldn't fight the Secretary of Labor, so they cooperated with him.
Okay.
At this point, the strike had shut down 85% of all total U.S. steel production.
Ouch.
Yeah.
That's not good for them.
And the federal government started to get a little bit antsy about this because this is kind of the height of the Cold War. And they didn't want this to have national security implications. So they weren't acting yet, but they were keeping an eye on things.
Oh, God.
So even with the fact-finding mission, though, or the fact-finding moderator, Neither side was willing to compromise, and basically everyone was just waiting to see who would flinch first, or if the government would come in and resolve it.
It's one of those things.
Uh-huh.
God damn it.
So by July 26th, fear around the strike's impact on the economy ramped up, because there were also concerns that aluminum and copper industry strikes might kick off, and that would basically just shut down all metal production in the U.S.
Yeah.
And that's when people started getting really worried that Ike would invoke the Taft-Hartley Act's national emergency provisions, which would force workers off the picket line for an 80-day cool-off period. On the picket line itself, people were starting to get like a little bit more concerned because, again, they hadn't gotten paid.
Yeah.
They were starting to like feel it. So a lot, it was also especially hurting the younger workers because they didn't have seniority. Yeah. And there had been layoffs the year before. So a lot of guys had lost work for like 3 months. So they had already used up all of their savings and credit in 1958 when they got laid off. And then additionally, one guy was interviewed and said that there was no public transit to the plant. So you had to have a car to get to work, which was another big expense that required a lot of upkeep. It's just another one of those things where you can see like an immediate impact of a shift from urban to suburban industry. Mm-hmm. And that automatically made it harder to go on strike because if you have to buy or if you have to keep up a car, that's expensive. Okay, so one guy also got threatened with eviction, but he told the union about it, and they reached out to his mortgage handler and dealt with it.
Good.
So that was cool.
Okay, cool.
And then, weirdly, the plant police, who were the guards, 95 out of 96 of them belonged to the United Plant Guards of America.
Oh, no.
And they pooled together $110 and donated that to the Strikers Coffee Fund.
What? Are you kidding me? Holy shit. All right. I take that back.
So we have banks being nice and solidarity from cops.
What is happening in this Twilight Zone episode?
I don't fucking know. Yeah, we have people in Levittown having solidarity with black workers and cops donating funds to strikers. It's weird. I don't understand this. I'm not sure how to feel about it. All right, we're going to fast forward to August 8th. Union continued to try and pressure Fairless on paying out the 2 weeks' pay that they owed, which was estimated to be around $2.5 million across 7,000 people. The union at this point offered to supply union workers to go into the plant and draft up payroll to get it distributed. But at the last minute, the company insisted that they have to have 2 non-union members go in with them. Yeah.
All right.
So the union rejected that, which I think was the company's goal. So the pay issue finally fucking got resolved on August 26th. So about a month and a week into the strike, they allowed 50 men from Local 5092, which represented the clerical workers. They would go in and start pay work on Monday, August 31st, to get everyone paid. So they had now gone at that point, they will have gone 6 weeks without any pay. I should also say, while all of this was going on, this is also when they were planning to have Khrushchev, the premier of the Soviet Union, come and visit the U.S. And it was suggested that he might come visit Levittown and this picket line. So that kept getting mentioned in August and early September. Khrushchev might come visit this.
He might come to Levittown.
Yeah.
The man's not busy enough.
So the strike continued into September. By the 2-month mark on September 15th, the strikers were like really starting to feel it because they had finally gotten their back pay, but that was still only another 2 weeks worth of pay.
Yeah.
So they had 6 weeks without pay.
All right.
Yeah. So they were not doing great. There was a lot of aid coming from the locals, and a lot of people now were getting the county food program. But there were a lot of complaints about the quality of the food. So throughout the entire strike, like I had mentioned, there were fears that the president would invoke Taft-Hartley.
Yeah.
By October, that seemed really likely. On October 6th, there was a large summit of steel industry and union representatives in Pittsburgh. And they tried to come to an amicable agreement, but again, no avail. McDonald, the USW president, asked for a neutral fact-finding committee again.
Oh no, not the fact finder.
Yeah.
Bach.
To review the situation and find a solution, but industry refused. And Eisenhower refused to appoint the committee unless both sides agreed. Which is kind of bullshit because the company was clearly just trying to wait it out.
Yeah.
So
stonewalling them. Yeah.
Then on October 9th, Eisenhower invoked Taft-Hartley. Yep.
Why am I laughing?
He sought a court injunction to force all 500,000 steelworkers back to work for 80 days while negotiations continued.
I like Ike.
He did say he felt a profound regret.
Oh, fuck you.
Yeah. And so everyone was
That's like him leading the military industrial complex and also complaining about the military industrial complex. It's like, sorry, bud, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah. That organization that you led from, say, was it 1943 to 1952? He was the general of the U.S. Army.
Yeah.
So by October 20th, there was no solution reached.
Oh, no.
So the courts issued an injunction. However, management at Fairless pulled some tricky shit that weekend. Select members of the management team had been allowed to access the plant after an agreement that they had reached back in August. So they were allowing managers to go in and basically like review the maintenance, make sure that everything was still in good order.
Yeah, so the place doesn't just like blow up.
Yeah. There are like giant gas tanks and huge furnaces.
Yeah.
So
I'm okay with this part.
Yeah.
But now with this next part coming up.
On Monday, October 19th, workers on the picket line noticed that the stacks had been turned back on and the furnaces were hot.
Okay.
So they figured out that management had come in on Saturday, relit the stacks, and had gotten everything ready, assuming that the strike or that the court injunction would force the strike to end on the 20th.
You tricky dicks.
Yep. It takes approximately 3 days for the production to like ramp up to full capacity.
Yeah.
So the company was trying to get a head start on it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. That is so nice of you, company. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So the union responded to this shitbaggery.
Please.
By locking the gates and declaring that no one was going in or out until management honored their agreement and shut the stacks off.
There we go.
Fairless responded to that by seeking an injunction against the lockdown. And on the 22nd, the workers were forced to let management through. However, the overall picketing injunction was still wrapped up in the courts because USW kept appealing. So the federal government, or this is Ike's injunction against the union, kept getting wrapped up in the courts.
Okay.
Until finally, It worked its way all the way up to the Supreme Court,
Oh god.
where in an 8-1 decision of Steelworkers versus United States, the court upheld that Taft-Hartley was constitutional
Fuck.
and that the workers had to return for an 80-day cooling off period.
So the Supreme Court was always shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I'm just checking.
This was the Warren Court, which was supposed to be the progressive one. Yeah.
I'm so disappointed in so many characters in the story.
Yeah. So this also really concerned the workers, because this meant that after 80 days, they would have to go back on strike in December.
Oh no.
Uh-huh. So they already didn't have any money. They weren't going to have time to pay off all of their credit dues. And then they were going to have to go back out on strike in the dead of winter.
Yeah.
So
this is not good.
they were not happy about that. But someone came to the rescue. Richard Milhouse Nixon.
No.
Uh-huh.
No.
Yeah. So Nixon was getting ready for his 1960 presidential election.
Tricky
or presidential
dick.
run.
Okay.
And he wanted to make a good impression. So he
This
took
is the wildest thing.
Uh-huh. This really surprised me. So he took it on himself to act as a mediator to try and speed up the final negotiations. He explained to the company, so he sat the company down and explained to them that an election year is coming up, and neither a Republican nor a Democratic legislature is going to look very kindly on the steel companies if they triggered a recession in an election year. Additionally,
Nice.
USW had already signed an agreement with one of the smaller firms, Kaiser Steel. And so that agreement, so Nixon took that agreement and basically shopped it around to all of the other major steel companies and was like, Kaiser already took this. If you don't agree to this, like, the federal government's gonna just come and stomp on you. So weirdly, through the intervention of Tricky Dick, on January 15th, 1960, a new contract was signed.
No.
Section 2B was preserved. Workers gained a 7-cent per hour raise, which they had initially been asking for a 15-cent an hour raise. So they took a big loss there.
Well, I mean, okay.
But, oh well. But they also got automatic cost of living adjustments and pension and medical benefits.
All right.
So,
Cola and some Medis. All right.
yeah, it was kind of evened out. But yeah, that was the 1959 steel strike at Fairless.